Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into a concept that you see a lot online, this really powerful idea of disappearing.
Right.
Working in the shadows, committing to becoming this next version of yourself.
Yeah.
All in secret. Some people call it going into beast mode.
It's a really compelling idea, and I think it's because it hits on a very real problem. I mean, when you look at why people even advocate for this, the sources all point to what they call a natural sociological phenomenon.
Which is just a fancy way of saying people will drag you down.
Exactly. It's that crabs in a bucket mentality. When you start to climb, when you show your ambition, it can make people uncomfortable and, they can try to pull you back down. So this whole philosophy is really a defense mechanism.
A defense mechanism for massive growth. And to guide us, we've gone through a bunch of material and we've got it all structured into a critical tier list.
Yeah, this list is great. It ranks about 15 core ideas from S tier, which is like the absolute foundation, all the way down to F tier for the things that are just fatal misconceptions.
So our mission today is to give you that blueprint. We're going to focus on the S and A tiers, the stuff that really works.
But just as important, maybe even more so, we have to talk about the D and F tiers, the big mistakes people make that can actually be pretty dangerous and counterproductive.
Right, because the promise of all this is that when you reappear, you'll shock the world. But the real goal, the thing you learn in the process, is that you won't even care about that anymore. The only opinion that will matter is yours.
That's the end game.
Okay, let's unpack this. This is the blueprint for becoming unrecognizable.
So if we're going to build this transformation machine, we have to start with the non-negotiables, the S tier. The sources call these the JOTs, the absolute cornerstones of any kind of success in life, really.
And the first S tier tip is, it's almost so fundamental people overlook it. Set clear goals.
It's everything. The sources basically say this is the single most critical thing a person can do, period.
I think we see people fail here all the time because the goals are just so vague. Like, I want to be successful or I want to get rich.
Right. What does that even mean? The goal has to be crystal clear. It has to be detailed, measurable. You need to know exactly what you're building. Is it to be, and I'm quoting here, absolutely jacked and unrecognizable?
Okay, so then you need to know the body fat percentage, the weight, the lifts, the specifics.
Precisely. Or is it to build a money printing business? Well, then you have to define the revenue streams, the systems you need. You have to be able to see it.
And the sources claim if you get that crystal clear goal, you've already won half the battle.
That obsessive clarity is what drives the action. And that leads us right into the second S tier tip, which is pretty straightforward. Put in the work.
The engine.
Exactly. The goal is the map, but this is the engine. It's about daily action, building that grit, and just putting one foot in front of the other, day after day.
So the S tier is really about the mindset. You have to revolve your entire life around crushing those goals.
Every hour is planned. Every action is intentional.
And the mentality they demand is that this isn't just some project you're working on. It's your one chance in life.
That intensity, that engine, it needs a shield. And that's what brings us to the A tier.
Okay, and this is where the strategy gets really specific. It shifts from just pure effort to execution and defense.
Yes. The A tier is all about protecting that internal progress from the outside world. From jealousy, from distraction, from your own self-sabotage.
The power of intentional secrecy.
And the first A tier tip is maybe the most important one for this whole strategy. Hide your plans.
The logic being that if you talk about your plans, you're just opening yourself up to opinions, to doubt.
You're putting a target on your back. It just creates unnecessary drag.
There's a really powerful analogy in the source material for this. It says to think of your plans like passwords to your treasure.
I love that.
And it warns that every time you leak a part of your plan, your chances of actually doing it go down by like 5%.
It's this insidious little bleed of energy and focus, so you have to be quiet. But what if you need advice? I mean, you can't do everything alone.
All right, so the guide says you do it with precision and focused intent. You reveal only the bare minimum you need to. It's information extraction, not a brainstorming session.
You get the data and then you disappear again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which requires a certain mental resilience, which is the next A-tier strategy. Don't care about others' thoughts.
This one is so hard for people. The sources say caring what other people think is like placing weights on yourself. It just pulls you back down to the average.
So how do you actually do that?
Well, there's a fascinating little mental hack they suggest. You essentially create an ideal version of yourself in your head, like an internal coach.
Okay.
And you become obsessed with what that person next big killer of projects, the urge to hide your progress.
Oh, this one is huge. You need to share the small wins along the way.
And there's some real science to this. The sources point out that when you talk about your progress, your brain releases some of the same chemicals it would if you'd actually finish the goal.
So you get that little shot of dopamine, that reward.
Prematurely, you get the prize for showing up, not for finishing the race.
So the social validation satisfies the drive,
Yeah.
and you're more likely to just stop.
That's it. Keeping it private maintains that hunger you need to get to the finish line.
Okay, finally in the A tier, here's an emotional one. Hide your pain tears.
Yeah, this one's tough. The journey is going to involve, blood, sweat, and tears. It's going to be mentally exhausting. And our instinct is to complain, to seek comfort.
But the sources are pretty uncompromising.
They are. They say you have to bleed, sweat, and cry all by your lonesome to build real character. You have to reframe pain. Every rock bottom moment is actually catapulting you to another level of performance.
But isn't that kind of dangerous? Complete emotional isolation. What about burnout?
They do address that, but with a huge warning label. There is one exception to all this secrecy. It could be a life partner or an incredibly rare friend who genuinely wants you to win.
So you can confide in.
You can, but they stress this is the single biggest risk in the entire process. Jealousy can creep in anywhere. So while that person can be an accelerant, they can also cause the whole thing to explode. You have to be extremely careful.
Well, let's move into the B and C tiers. This is where, the nuance really comes in. These things are important, but they're often misunderstood.
Yeah, people tend to make them the main goal when they're really just symptoms or side effects of doing the S and A tiers correctly,
So in the B tier, we have shut your mouth.
which a lot of people took way too literally. They thought it meant you have to become a total mute, just awkward and silent.
Right, but the clarification is that it just means control the urge to spill information. Don't talk about your plans, don't talk about your progress, unless it is absolutely strategic to do so.
It's about selective speech, not silence.
Also in B tier is get off of social media. But again, this comes with a big asterisk.
A huge one. This is only critical if social media is just a waste of your time. If you're doom scrolling for hours, then yeah, you have to cut it out.
But if it's a tool for your goals, say you're growing a business community or using LinkedIn for your career,
Then you should absolutely use it. But you use it like a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. You go in, do what you need to do, and get out. You don't use it to broadcast your half-finished projects.
makes sense. Okay, so moving to C tier. These are described as outcomes, not actions. First one is be mysterious.
Right. You don't try to be mysterious. If you're doing the A tier stuff correctly, hiding your plans, hiding your progress, you just will be mysterious to other people. It's a sign that you're on the right track.
A natural result.
Yeah.
And the other C tier tip is confide in a close friend or partner.
And we talked about this being a potential accelerant, but the sources are clear. It is not required. Success is 100% achievable alone.
They actually have a pretty encouraging take on this.
They do. They suggest that as you grow, as you put in the work and transform, the universe will kind of reveal these supportive people to you anyway, so you don't need to stress about finding that person at the start. Okay, so this is critical. To help you actually succeed, we need to spend some real time on the misconceptions, the D and F tiers.
Yeah, these are the traps. This is where people take the philosophy too literally, and it all goes wrong.
Let's start with the D tier. Physically disappear. Stop socializing.
This is a big one. People think they need to, lock themselves in a room and become a hermit.
And the source material is very explicit. You do not need to do that. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of disappearing. The disappearance is about your plans, Which leaves us with a really provocative thought for you to consider.
Okay, let's hear it.
If the ultimate success of this transformation means you stop caring about external validation, and that big, world-shocking reappearance becomes totally irrelevant, what does this philosophy truly say about the necessity of society and external recognition in the pursuit of personal excellence?
We'll leave you to wrestle with that one. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.